Welcome back to the podcast. In this episode, I speak with David Burnet, who is the director and founder of Invidar. In the episode, we discuss how David went from being a freelancer straight out of university to creating his startup that is now around 10 to 15 people. And Invidar specializes on XR platforms and interfaces with Unreal Engine. As I said, me and David speak about a whole host of topics in this episode. So if you're a new founder or if you're one that's very experienced, this is going to be a good one. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Kid influencers and stuff and the rise of that and her company doing that, essentially.
Yeah.
So I'm just checking connection. Is my connection okay to you?
Yeah, just bang on. Yeah, volume's good. Everything sounds good.
Cool. That's fine. I'm just seeing your quality drop and just make sure I don't come through that on your end.
Yeah, sometimes the quality drops, but because of it's the streaming service, so it might look bad, but it's always when you rewatch it back, it's actually crisp as anything. But it's just the way the platform works. So if you do see me glitching out a little bit, it's not that. Yeah, it's not that it's actually doing that. But
yeah, that's clever. So
well, we're actually recording now. So but one thing I did want to note down before we started, what was the camera called that you used?
It's the Elgato face cam. So I do have a light as well. So there is a light which is quite diffuse as well because it's got no diffuse on it. So but out of the box, it's still pretty good as well. To be fair, their whole lineup, I should get sponsorship by Elgato, is pretty good. We're even using some of their camera stands as well for some tool-mounted cameras that we're working on a project for at the moment for some tracking. So there's a couple actually mounted to the roof of the office. So
do you do like filming in the office as well, or is that where you do most of like? So you've got like what the lighthouse is at the.
So those are actually so they're like camera mounts essentially. So they're quarter threads. So we're using them to mount other cameras and other sensors for a project that we're working on at the moment. So which I can't say much about.
You say that all the time. Whenever we speak, you're like, "Yeah, I've got this project, but I can't tell you much about it."
Yeah, I can't tell you much, especially as we're recording. But there's some that I can touch on, and some that I can't, and I'll be cautious. But I'll say what's the reason. So depending on what goes live. But that one's go out to an installation. So and it's all about multimodal tracking. So it's how we integrate with devices and how we like human-computer interaction. So hand tracking, eye tracking, all of that kind of stuff. So we're playing with a few sensors at the moment that feed information back into a game engine that allow us to do a whole number of things with it for a gameplay and immersive experience. So
cool.
An exciting one. That'll hopefully be released sometime next year. So
So have you got any exciting projects that you're allowed to talk about?
Oh, it depends. I mean, is this the bit to go live, or is this going to go live now?
Yeah. So this will be going live. So stuff that you're allowed to tell the public.
Yeah, stuff I'm allowed to talk about. Yeah. So I mean, I suppose so. My team's a bit split at the moment. So half my team's actually working on a Hollywood production, which is probably one of the more exciting things that we can loosely talk about and just say that we are kind of working on it. I don't think it's been publicly announced yet, but working with a great local company, and it's their majority team that's working on it, and they're the lead on it. But we're kind of in the background doing technical support in Unreal Engine. So complete different way of making a film. Will be really cool when it comes out. It's working with an existing IP, so but Hollywood budget, Hollywood director. That's hopefully again sometime next year, maybe a bit longer. That's probably one of the more exciting projects that we're currently working on, in addition to some of the stuff that we're doing internally that we can't talk about. But in the past, it's the crazy projects for working on pieces that have been gone in for Samsung. I mean, going down the line, pitching into like the Google Chrome team has been amazing. Working on our groundbreaking project, which was Milwaukee Tools, and alongside that, just working on our own IP and starting to get ready for those next steps of what we're working on for the next few years, which I know were in the questions. So
and I guess when you started the business, did you ever think about it like ending up in Hollywood? Like how?
No, God no. Yeah. God no. No, I suppose. I mean, if there's anything to highlight on today, it's the kind of founder's story and the kind of just getting started and getting stuck in. I mean, my Invidar's only been running 3.5 years now. So we were founded in the pandemic, kind of forced to go down that route of working on my own. Touch on points again about that. But
let's dive into that straight away. So how did what was your background before you started the company? What were you kind of doing in COVID or
Yeah,
pre-COVID?
So, I mean, my background it's quite a quick one. I think I've managed to compact a lot of. I think I've compacted a few decades into the space of about 5 years. But and I'll show my age because I'm only 28. So, and I know I look like I've gone into my 30s, etc. But I'm just that. And I say to students all the time, where do you want to be in 5 years? Because I am that now from graduating in university. So, graduated university in 2018. Was very much planning to go and do my PhD. Got put forward a lot to do that. Fortunately, I didn't get my PhD. I put all my eggs in that basket. So I thought, no, what am I going to do? I'm going to go find a job. Fortunately, the people that I looked to do a PhD with, the company offered me a job outright. So I worked for them for about 18 months as a 3D artist because that's what I studied at Bournemouth University. And prior to that, at Basingstoke College of Technology was all around games development and games technology. So I'd been doing that for, at that point, about 10 years by the time I'd graduated university, going into the 2 years that I did there, or the 18 months I did at that company, surrounding art. And then, as everyone knows, the pandemic hit and it turned the world upside down.
Yeah.
So I was in January, before we'd even gone into a lockdown, made redundant. David, we're making you redundant, effective immediately, essentially. A month later, we go into lockdown thinking, what am I actually going to do? Because I, haven't got too much of a plan. I didn't, no one's hiring. It's unprecedented. Everyone's really concerned about what's happening in the world. We really didn't know what was going to happen. And no one's hiring. I did have some experience of going into like the Jaguar Land Rover team because they've got an amazing team down there. They've got like a 50, 60 strong team of immersive 3D people. So I thought, try and go there. They were the only people potentially hiring.
Yeah.
But I ended up essentially going freelance and being pushed to go down more of a limited company route.
Did you jump on like a platform for that? Did you jump on like Fiverr or Upwork or stuff like that?
No. So I kind of just announced it to the world on LinkedIn. So I've always, been an advocate of LinkedIn, trying to build up that network essentially. And I just kind of went freelance on there, just kind of launched it, came up with the name pretty quickly. Invidar does have a small story behind it as well. So Vardar being a Norse god, one of the only ones to survive the pandemic of Ragnarok, and then Invidar being the more techie side, etc. So just does Invidar. But no, it was just a case of put myself in a position or an opportunity, or put myself in a place where for those opportunities to come along. So I am, freelancing. I am looking for work. I am set up as a limited company. I'm about registered and ready to take in work, and it takes time for any company to find their first few clients.
Yeah.
And that is fortunately what happened to me. It took me about 6 months. And at this point, I really am running out of money. I'm trying to do my master's at the same time because I just started my master's as well in January. So I subsequently dropped out of that.
What did that look like, sorry? What did that look like then, finding those first few clients? How were you looking for them? Were you jumping on LinkedIn? Were you just sending DMs to people?
Yeah, so there was a little bit of that. There was a lot of learning as well. I'd never done like cold outreach, never done a sales background. Fortunately, I was trying to speak to a few different companies. I was speaking to a few recruiters at the time because I knew a lot of recruiters. So the typical ones out there, 4.0, etc., and a few other profile creators as well. I was speaking to. They're a bit like trying to find you jobs. They're like freelancers, a bit like Fiverr, but they're individually looking for contracts for you. Unfortunately, through speaking to a few companies and speaking to a few people that sort of like my profile, etc. Fortunately, the SEO sort of gods were on my side because if you Google Unreal Engine developer Bournemouth, I'm the first link that pops up. So I found a few of my first conversations that later led on to other projects through those kind of interactions, saying like, hey, you do this, essentially, I'd love to reach out and talk. Funnily enough, the Hollywood film, a project that we're working on at the moment, one of our clients, that's how they found me, essentially, and that's how I had that initial conversation those first few months in. And it took about a year until a project came along that we could work on together. More than they needed our services.
How were the SEO gods on your side exactly? Was that just from were you
was your website just Unreal Engine developers? Yeah, typing into Google, finding those people essentially. When you go into LinkedIn as well, I've got a lot of endorsements. As I said, I've always been working on my LinkedIn all the way through college, all the way through university. So by the time I come out of university, compared to most graduates, my profile is top of the pile essentially most of the time.
Nice.
I go back and do talks to students about this as well, one about not just how you can influence and make sure you have items and content on your LinkedIn profile, but also what you can do. It's not enough to come out of university with a degree. And I've basically just applied that to anything I've ever worked in. So, when I come out of university, 4 SRAs, already a year and a half industry experience. When I came out of university, I worked for ASUS as a volunteer in the marketing department the first year. I worked for the university as well as staff, going and doing events, event management, etc., marketing and comms. So I've done a bit of everything while I was at university, in addition to then doing those 18 months in the industry. And it also gave me time to work on my own stuff. Obviously can't share what I'd done for my previous company. So I worked on my own portfolio pieces again, put myself out there, finding those jobs essentially. And also just applying for jobs really helped, because then I already found out who's needing what particular requirements at the moment. And I didn't realize it at the time until I'd got those first few clients on, how much of an explosion of this type of work was going to be out there, because the pandemic really was, although it was obviously bad for a lot of people in terms of the workload that we were doing in the digital space and the kind of 3D and the digital creation and the content space. It was massive for us. Everyone suddenly needed digital doubles, 3D reconstructions, e-learning, backend systems, for all of these kind of different kind of levels and calibers. And that's really what took off. So as I said, about 6 months in, we actually worked for a company called Smile, who's a much larger London agency who have got lots of amazing clients, in particular Meta and Samsung. So I did some work for them, working on one of their Samsung projects, which, in my opinion, is one of the first sort of true virtual events that we see in the pandemic for them. So again, working with them, great agency, big name out there essentially. That was something to give me quite a bit of notoriety for one of my first projects. And through that, got a little bit of money in the company. Great, cool, structure kind of works. It's paid rent this month essentially. And off the back of that, I got contacted by another company who's working with a few other companies to deliver something for Milwaukee Tools. So we created a nice, by the end of it, we'd created a nice partnership of companies essentially between us to go and deliver to them what was a true virtual events platform. Something that was just a huge project. We worked on that for 18 months after that. For us, that was a huge contract. In terms of value, it was, I wouldn't really want to say, but it was 20, 30x times the value of what we'd worked on previously for that first client. And that was just in the first contract, and the first few after that were of similar caliber. So, and we delivered a whole virtual events platform for them in combination with our partners and other providers as well, too many to name, because it was such a huge project. It was it was across the whole of the EMEA, so it was like 12 different kind of languages, 20 or different plus cultures, and thousands of people through the last event, in all the events we did for them as well. Had a whole virtualized job site, webinars, e-learning, anything you can kind of imagine that you'd want to be in your own bespoke digital marketing kind of platform for your VIPs. That's what that platform very much entailed, and ended up actually going for 2 global awards as well, for one of the best VR marketing campaigns of the year and one of the best collaboration solutions of the year as well at the XR Awards. So that kind of gave us our grounding throughout the pandemic.
I was going to say that
find that first client essentially, deliver some great work, and then get to work on an opportunity like that with the amount of gravitas that went with it, and actually develop something truly special, something that was truly unique at the time, has just been sort of a catapult for us to go on and do what we do today, which is continuing on to deliver real-time 3D solutions, immersive technology, and full stack development. And kind of tying those in a neat bow for clients and services and other larger agencies.
So after that big contract, were you then at a point where you were thinking, okay, now I have to hire more people? Because obviously,
yes,
I just want to imagine the situation. So you win the contract, or you at least get the budget to do it. What's the next step on the process for you? Is it like, oh shit, I have to hire people now? What was that like at the time?
It was definitely like that. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to obviously work with some great people, and throughout the course of Invidar's life, looking back on it now and who we are working with today and who staff are, etc. We've had some amazing people to work with, amazing freelancers, amazing other companies as well that we've relied on, amazing partnerships, amazing clients overall. So that's the only way we've been able to deliver what we've been able to deliver. But in terms of how the strategy looked at the start, actually my original placement student who I had on from my first company came and worked with me for a while. And then just, I know this person, or I've got this person from my previous company. Again, my CTO for Invidar, my guy that, architects all the backend systems, Antonio, he came from the previous company as well to work with me on this project. And we've kind of just formed a company around that, and just kind of in those first days hired who we knew, people that we previously worked with, people that have recommended, and had those kind of attitudes. Moving forward, that's kind of changed a little bit. It's kind of a case of what I learned is I don't just need great people. I need people that understand that we are building something here. We are building a business. I need them to be like those founding members, as well as being a great artist or a great developer. I need everyone to kind of help me formulate the mission of what we want to do longer term. I mean, that's something we've really been working on this year because, as I say, even though that contract for Milwaukee was nearly 2 years or 18 months as well, we've only been going 3.5 years. So they make up a significant portion of our growth journey. So growing that team has been a fast lesson, and this has kind of been our year of maturity and really finding who those best people are to continue to work with and continue to build the team with. But yeah, just
how has that been then as well? So obviously going from kind of thrusted into it. How did you go about then, the operational standpoint and HR? And because I think that's the hardest thing for most people to go through is okay, I kind of can hire people around me, but then how do you keep those people happy, and how does the company evolve in that respect?
I think in terms of arc on the people, keeping people happy, and I think it comes down to compassionate leadership, but ultimately just being brutally honest with the people that you work with, especially the people that you hire. Yeah. There's an element of being the boss and saying, not showing cash flow, or if there's a problem 1 month to the next, not showing all your deepest and darkest secrets, but saying, hey guys, this is who we're speaking to this month. This is what's kind of on my agenda. Letting them kind of know what's going on from an operational standpoint. And being brutally honest with them, being like, we're speaking to these people because of this, we're exploring this opportunity, but it's likely that it won't come off. Or it's like, hey, we're just in the process of doing this contract, but it's not been signed off yet. Or just, again, having those conversations with the team so they understand what almost my headspace is like that. And then, if they kind of know what's happening from a company standpoint, they can feel more secure in what they're doing. And overall, I think that really builds up the kind of sense of, okay, we're involved, we're knowledgeable, we know we are in this ship together, essentially. Yeah. So a combination of just, compassionate leadership, letting them know as well that I'm still learning some of this at the same time as well. So when it does come to contracts, etc., I did make a mistake initially with holiday, for example, in our first year. I said, hey guys, I've really messed up with one part of your contract. You're actually entitled to a bit more holiday than I thought you were. So I've sent you all out new contracts right now for you to have a look at and review. So you can either sign them or you can take me to, employees court and argue for it. And the same thing, essentially. But yeah, there's just this point of honesty. And I think if you're honest with your team, whatever team you grow, then I think they'll have an understanding and a respect for it, and everyone all over will be happier because they have an understanding, they have a picture. We're all in the same boat. It's like having a company mission that we stick to. What is our company mission? What is our goal for this month? Everyone knows what everyone's working on. We're not working in solitude, and that really does bring a collective together. So. Are
you guys working in the office most of the time together then? Because the current company I'm working at, we also have this. People want to work from home. People want to have the flexibility, but also we want to have the team cohesion and the team spirit where we're all together. A few days a week. How do you guys manage and balance that?
Yeah, I think for us it's relatively straightforward. It's both a weird situation at the moment and a relatively straightforward situation at the same time. So when it's relatively straightforward, none of my team members have children, etc., or doing the school run, etc. So from that standpoint, they're pretty much just kind of want to work in the office or work a traditional 9 to 5 rather than flexible hours. They do have that opportunity if they want to work some flexible hours. I've got one person that works 1 day a week from home just because they've got some driving lessons at the moment. I've got another person, two of our other guys, why I say it's a bit of a mixed bag at the moment, are actually permanently working in my client's office up until December next year. So the team is currently split. So that's a split, which is why it's a bit of a weird situation. But for the most part, we're very much a in-office sort of company, essentially. So everyone likes to be in office, everyone likes to collaborate and be together, even though we are technically kind of separated as a company at the moment. We'll have that big reunion party next December, so which will be really nice. But until, I suppose, yeah, as I said, that demographic, because we don't all have kids, etc., I suppose we very much just kind of want to be in the office, want to collaborate.
Yeah.
But they do have that option. I think having that option as well is the way things are going. We want to be able to have flexibility in our job, and I think that's something that's truly valued, not just from myself, but also from the employees as well. Maybe starting later, or I've got a doctor's appointment, or I've got just knowing that they can have that flexible hours is not a case of you have to request it 5 weeks in advance or something like that. Just saying, hi boss, I've got a dentist appointment at 12 today. Can I finish, early today or do something? They just kind of know they can, because again, they're also aware of the deadlines, and that comes back with the honesty cycle. So it all just kind of compounds and feedback on each other. They know exactly what's got to be delivered. They've, as long as there's clear communication, then they can kind of manage themselves almost to a certain extent. But you only really get that kind of in a small team to a point, I would say.
Do you think that's because I remember, I don't know what it's like in the UK now, but when I worked in the UK, I remember it being like you were treated a little bit like a school kid at work. You had to give like so much notice to go to a doctor's appointment. They were kind of like begrudging you about it. But now I live in the Netherlands. I felt like people were treated very much like adults when I started working here.
Yeah.
And post the pandemic now, I think it's also got even more like, oh yeah, cool. Like, if you need to go to the doctors, no worries, man. Just, you don't need to tell me. And some people are a little bit like still in that transition of like, do I ask? Do I not ask? But I think that's been a good thing as well, just in general.
I think it's the best way to effectively manage. I mean, it all does come down to compassionate leadership, right? So if there is a problem, if there is a problem that comes up, clear communication again. I would rather know that you. I'll give an example. So one of my employees had an operation last week on Saturday. He made sure it was out of time. But I was like, okay, but you're going to need time to recover. I'm not expecting you to come back Monday until we'll be 100%. And we've discussed that, and come back to work essentially when you're ready. And that's not just sick days or whatever like that. It's just making sure that that person has enough time to be the best person they can be at work. And again, having those conversations early rather than be like, hey boss, I can't come this week. I had an operation on Saturday. Can I have today ill? We've already had that conversation. In my head, I know, okay, right, I'm down this particular person for the next few days at least. I've already had a conversation with my client. So it just comes down to communication at the end of the day. Everyone gets affected if we can make an environment which is safe to have those talks, essentially. Because if it's not an environment that aren't safe to have those talks, then everything else gets affected.
I couldn't agree more. And I feel like some of the older generation, I don't know how much you deal with like people in like 40s, 50s and 60s, but I think they're struggling the most. Like the people in those management roles seem to, from my perspective, they seem to be the ones struggling the most with this new way of working, because they're always comparing it to, like it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And sometimes that can be a little bit toxic in a way, because they have these expectations on the younger generation who aren't like that. They don't work like that anymore. And then you get that clashing of like, the old dog with the young pup kind of thing.
Yeah, and I actually feel kind of bad for them as well, because I think in some cases there are points where some of the older generation almost been taken advantage of because they are stuck in that kind of old school way. I've actually just dealt with this with a family member who's in their late 50s, coming out of a job that they've been in for 19 years, and actually when I went back and had a look through their contracts and actually what's done, it's like actually you've been treated really badly. And actually, we need to probably get a lawyer involved. And actually, like your contract is also like really out of date. And even though it's been updated, you're missing several bits of documentation. And and they've gone off with a shoulder injury that can't be fixed. It's degenerated essentially, but there's multiple reports saying that, hey, you should have had this put in place. I think actually there's a catching up with some people of that generation. I think actually they're seeing maybe some of the worst of it in some of those jobs. So
I guess you're in like a really nice position as like a young founder. Young, in relative speaking, you're probably going to live to your 90 or 100, or most of us are. So, still a long way to go for us. But you're in that really nice position of like, you worked into that, you worked post-COVID, you worked pre-COVID, and now you come out the other side and you've started a company. You've seen sort of both ends of the spectrum. So I think like you have a very compassionate and also a very open view on it. You're at that age where you can understand and relate to a 19, 20-year-old kid, but you're also old enough to remember what it was like for the old guys as well, which is unique.
I mean, it is kind of a pinch me moment when I sit in these meetings, and besides me are people with decades of experience. I mean, one of the first people that I learned a lot from. I like to give mentorship back. I speak with a lot of people now day on day, but I've had to learn a lot from other people as well that have had decades of experience in the industry. One of the first people I got to work with, Lynn, I'll drop her name, so Lynn Boone, who's an amazing 3D designer, CD, Cinema 4D effects, etc. I was helping her with some Unreal knowledge at the time, and she was feeding me back, the information that she had learned over decades of working as a freelancer, working in this kind of space. And it's such a value, it's such a privilege to work alongside those types of people. And like Andrew from Immo UK, for example, one particular company I worked on with the Milwaukee Tools project. Again, learned a ton from him, how to project manage, how to help deal with employees, etc. What types of things I am missing from my contract, etc. But I think from my perspective, in my age, and a sort of a message to anybody else that is kind of at that age or coming out of university, don't wait until you can change your life at any point in your life, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever it might be, 100 years old, right? But in your 20s, in my opinion, is the time where you need to take the risk, right? There's no better time. There's no point getting a job for 5 or 10 years, building up some money, etc., and then taking the risk. Do it in your 20s, because if you can afford more to do it in your 20s, you can, from a point perspective, you're not going to be spending tens of thousands like you might have done in your 30s, etc. You just have the opportunity. You don't have the family for statistically, especially if you go down the university route, etc. Whatever it might be, you're in your best place to work in your 20s. I'm a big believer that you should spend every hour in your 20s building your personal brand, building what you are going to be, and then if it all goes to failure, which I'd hope it wouldn't, you'd hopefully come out with a massive network, which is of huge value. You would have done a lot more than anybody else. You'll have a story to tell, essentially, to your next employer, whoever that might be, and you'll be so much more valuable to that company. So whatever way you look at it, you're going to learn and grow a lot more if you look at it from that perspective, about just spending every hour building a personal brand, building yourself up in your 20s. But you can do that at any point in your life. But I think it's critical at that point.
I totally agree. I could not agree more. It's funny. I'm actually in that transition period a little bit later in life right now. So I've actually recently stopped working. Well, I'm at the period of phasing out from the current company I'm working at and going into my own, solo venture, so to speak. And when I did my own solo venture when I was in my 20s, man, it was so much easier. I was living at home with my parents, didn't have bills that I had to really pay. I had to pay a little bit of rent or a little bit of food and a bit of beer money at the weekend. And that was it, really. And I had all the time in the world to go after my passion projects and side businesses. But now, oh man, I've got a mortgage to pay. I've got a girlfriend to try and keep happy. That's way harder actually than the mortgage. But it's like all of those extra things. And then, I'm 33, I'm turning 34. Children are probably going to be on the horizon the next couple of years. And then all of a sudden, when you want to take that risk, you really second guess it. You're like, oh my God, but what if it doesn't work? Then I can lose my house. I can lose my girlfriend. There's so many more things that can go wrong. So I could not agree more. Just take the chance while you're 20.
Yeah, but it comes down to the point as well as just start, especially if you can, if you can even spend just 1 or 2 hours a night putting it into your own business, much like you're doing at the moment, to build it all up and network. And the people that you've been speaking to are amazing, and I'm sure will continue to grow and be bigger than what I've done and what others have done. And it's just about starting at the end of the day as well. Just start, just put yourself in that opportunity where you can succeed.
Yeah.
We kind of touched on a few lessons that I speak to students about, which is, right time, right place. Well, you can already be in the right place. You can already say, hey, world, I'm doing this, right? Who wants to be a part of it, essentially? One of the other lessons is there's no replacement for hard work. Put in the hours,
Yeah.
rather than going, I didn't go out and club and spend. I have, but it wasn't frequent, right? Once in a blue moon, it's for my birthday, it's for, my brother's essentially, my brother's wedding, essentially. It's not every weekend. I'm spending that time grafting, getting done. And now, fortunate enough, I've been a homeowner at 26. One of my only dreams, and that was another pinch me moment. None of this has been planned. As I go and I started Invidar, it was a case of like, okay, well, I'm going to try. I'm going to go start my business. I'm going to go and at that point just go freelance and see who might have some work for me. And then that grew into a business. And then I started working on projects for the likes of Samsung and Milwaukee, and pitching into like Google and working with trainer brands and doing some direct work for Sony. And, just again, all these pinch myself moments of like, wow, did I actually just have that conversation? And one of my only dreams, because my parents lost their house in the 2008 crisis, financial crisis, essentially. And I thought, well, I know they've always struggled to have a roof over their head, essentially. I don't feel like I come from any means of, disadvantaged stuff, but we're very much working class, and we've always kind of, always had food on the table, roof overhead. So that means we've had everything we need to be able to go on and graft and do what we do. But I said to myself, I really want to get that roof over my head. I really want to get myself on that mortgage because I know how hard that is now. And as soon as I got those keys, must have been about 2 years into my company, I thought, and I held those keys all the way back home on the train from Poole all the way back to Winchester. I think I got off at. And I was like, I still had these keys when I was going. I was like, I don't believe I've actually done this. Like, again, it's a pinch myself moment. But it is that thing. Once you start to take on those responsibilities, and having a significant other, having children, and then having that mortgage essentially to pay, those are the things where it's like, okay, if I mess up this week or I mess up this month or this year, then I'm going to affect those people in my life, essentially. So it is
but it can also be used as fuel at the same time. You can. It depends on which way you look at it. Totally. You've got a lot to lose in some respects, but that can also be the activation energy that you need to, give yourself a kick up the ass sometimes. It kind of depends how you look at it, but starting young is 100% the best way to go. And you've just got way more energy, like it's funny, like I'm not old, but like 33 Dave to 23-year-old Dave, I can tell there's a big gap in the energy levels. And when you're 23, you can work, an 18-hour day, sleep 4 hours, still go for a couple of beers and then wake up at 7 a.m. and start working again with no issue in the world. Nowadays, if I don't get 8 hours sleep, man.
I'm starting to feel it now as well.
That's my hangover nowadays, not getting 8 hours sleep.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I'm still doing all nighters at the moment. I'm in a process at the moment of, and I'm just about to take the step as well. I'm about to say to everybody on network, essentially, like, I'm not doing, from next year, guys, I'm not actually doing the development work. I'm not actually doing the sitting down of what developers and artists might do, because I've done that for the last decade now, essentially, or, and learn artistry for like 6 years and stuff. I'm still very capable of 3D modeler and programmer, but actually, guys, I'm not doing it so I can grow myself and the business, and thus make it better for everyone that I employ, essentially, and be able to deliver a better project, or better product or project overall, because actually it'll have someone overlooking it and making sure that it is polished and delivered properly. Don't do that, but it just means that it will have that extra level of commitment and attention from myself that isn't spending all night, is actually getting a project out in crunch time. I want to kind of move away from that. So I'm telling myself at the moment that, I can't do that long term. There's only so much of energy at the moment that I'm spending on that.
I guess as a founder, you have to be, as the business owner, you have to be very selective on what you say yes to, right? Because you only have so many hours in the day, and where you can hire people to do the things that you're not so good at, maybe is that how you're looking at it? What's your mind frame for that? Is you hiring people to do the things that you're not that good at, or is it tell me a little bit more about that. How are you
Yeah,
looking at that?
I suppose more so now. Yes, originally, back when we had the project monies coming in, essentially it was all good. I'd hired lots of people that just be very good from a technical aspect. So people that I knew who had done my role before. So we use a lot of Unreal Engine. So hire people that know how to do blueprints, C++, etc. We need 3D models. Great, cool. We'll get some amazing artists in, people that we've worked with in the past. I work very closely with Bournemouth University, the university I come from, still to this day. In fact, I'm giving a talk on this Friday. I was there doing a graduate masterclass class last week, and doing a bunch of stuff with them still to work with their students. That allows me to sort of handpick and work with students as well when they come out of university and graduate. So I have that kind of set up to say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is the types of people that I want to work with, etc. But it's it's an interesting one. The people that we do work with.
And so let's talk a little bit more about the services that you guys offer then. So 3D modeling, development, and real time, right? So tell me a little bit more about that. And so I understand the 3D modeling, I understand in the development side, but give me a little bit of more of a detailed a detailed overview on what all those services do.
Yeah. So the reason we like to put a corporate spin on it, as it were. So what we say is that we as Invidar, we do real-time 3D solutions and immersive technology. And essentially that splits into 3 teams. So that is the real-time element, that is the 3D element, and the full stack development, essentially. And all that basically means that we take video games technology and use it for commercial applications. So when I say real-time, what I actually mean is that we're actually just using a game engine, or using a service like Sketchfab, or making our own configurator, or working with those types of formats, something that is interactable, something that is explorable in real time. So we're not a company that likes to do a lot of CGIs and renders and pre-rendered things, even though we do that, and we don't like to say that as our main service. We like to say we do the interactive bit. We want to make sure that you can play it, get it in the hands of people, get it in an app, get it on a website, etc., out to those people. So that's the real-time side of it. It's making those environments, making those immersive experiences actually interactive and interactable in real time. The 3D modeling obviously goes hand in hand with that. We're going to need models. We're going to need content that goes into that. So animations, making the models themselves, digital twins, making products, making entire architecture, digital doubles, etc. spaces. That's what they very much do. That's what that service is. And full stack is relatively self-explanatory as well. So full stack development, building front-end systems, building back-end systems, architecting that out. Obviously, going back towards Milwaukee Tools, for them, we had to have a website. We worked with designers, etc. We got design ready, built the website, built the back-end systems, had a virtualized job site, so I had an environment come in, make their tools, make a virtual environment, and then we did the real-time stuff as well, so developing it, making it accessible. One of our biggest technologies has actually been pixel streaming, which is cloud computing. For a lot of people that don't know that, it's like Google Stadia. So you load it up on a server, it streams down to a user. They can then go in and play with that on their computer, but it doesn't have to be high spec because all the processing is being done on another computer. They're just seeing the stream and it's sending you back a real-time frame. So very cool, easy technology, accessible technology that's really developed, especially over the pandemic. The cost for that, in fact, has come down tenfold. But that is all what we're about. It's those real-time 3D solutions, getting them out there for businesses to drive business, inventing those realities for business benefit, which is our slogan. So, and that's all what we're about. But it is effectively just taking video games technology and repackaging it up for these commercial clients. So
And so what are some the clients that you're allowed to mention? So you mentioned a few at the start. Are you allowed to mention any maybe if you can't mention the client name, but what are the typical industries that come to you guys and think these are the guys we want to work with? What are those industries?
So I'll give kind of 2 answers to that. I'll speak about industries more generally, but the types of clients that we typically work with are larger agencies. A lot of the clients that we, or projects I should say, so Samsung is a project, not a client, larger agencies, such as Smile, essentially, that do absolutely amazing work, that have that existing client base, partnerships, businesses that we work with as well for their clients, joint ventures, tenders, going in together, working with people. That's what we predominantly do. We do have a few direct contracts with larger direct kind of companies, such as Sony. We've done some direct work for, and some others. But that is more what we like to do. We like to partner with people, partner with agencies, and partner and other companies, etc., to go and deliver that amazing work. But because it also works kind of nicer, and they've got those existing relationships, project management, they know what needs to be done, so they bring us in as kind of an SAS team to kind of get that immersive level, or something that they haven't quite done before that they want to explore, and we help them try and realize what is potentially possible. So that's the way that we like to work. But secondly, on what industries and sectors we kind of cover, or where it really goes into, I mean, there are not a lot of industries, and we can kind of spitball a few on here that you can't apply 3D technologies to, or those kind of immersive solutions to. 3D in general is just becoming a huge industry. I mean, we can talk about like what's next and new, how we access into internet, essentially going into Web3 and blockchain. A lot of that is kind of integrating into sort of metaverse. So we're seeing a combination of the two there, with back-end systems essentially and cryptocurrencies, and that then falls nicely into the 3D side and how we access stuff through metaverse. Or whether that's more in the e-learning side, whether we want to visualize environments. You talk about medical spaces there, training doctors, training pilots, doing defense contracts, which we're looking at a few at the moment. Got that kind of sector in e-learning. Then you've just got like a sort of architectural visualization and building your own apartment block and selling it out. You see that in places like The Line, or you see that in places like Dubai, where they've just done like a digital double of their entire city essentially. And you see it through like configurators as well. So you see in the commercial sector. So you see it in automotive, especially. So I mean, you can pretty much go to any car manufacturer's website at the moment. I think Audi and Porsche have got a few good ones. Ford's doing a lot as well in terms of pixel streaming experiences out to the masses. They are all have configurators. Do you want alloy wheels? Do you want what type of leather interior do you want? Do you want the sports package? Do you want carbon fiber? Do you want and they give you a real-time visualization of what it will look like, and then also give you the price. The whole point of that, and the whole area of that industry, is giving more information to the user to make an informed purchase. So it's very hard not to look at an industry where you can't apply 3D technology. And then you've just got media in general, visual effects, film, television, etc. The games industry quickly becoming the line between the games industry and the film industry is blurring now. We know that from the project that we're currently working on with Treehouse Digital, who's the amazing client working on that production. And it's that's just media, so that kind of sits in the middle. So media, mass consumption of content, etc. Building content for the masses. You've got GTA 6 coming out in 2025 now, I believe. I think it's dropped today. So,
oh my gosh!
So we're filling. Our technology has been filled in a lot of different sectors, and will continue to. And I do, believe we are going to have effectively digital doubles of everything. And that all plays into where we're going with AI, and there's other conversations there about how proficient we're coming. I did a talk last year, being a lead technical artist on that production for my client, but they also have a lead character artist who's of a similar age to me, similar experience in terms of coming out of university. And the main point from there to the crowd is say, hey, you've got two people here who are 4 years out of university, who are currently working on a leading project in their industry, and who are leads on that project. In what world are we working in where someone that's only got 4 years of experience can be a lead on a groundbreaking project, right? And at times two, and working with some great people there. It's not the case anymore that you need decades of experience in the creative industries to become of that level. And that comes with just everything becoming more proficient and efficient, and different ways of doing stuff. AI influencing that a lot.
Are you guys using much AI at the moment? How do you guys incorporate that?
We're keeping quite a close eye on it, with what's going on in our industry. I think everyone's using ChatGPT. I mean, everyone's using AI law people, etc. It's always good to double check stuff whenever we get something in, or quickly going through this contract, or hey, I need a social media post. We've definitely been there. We've definitely done that. So
of course,
but everyone's doing that at the moment. I mean, we've got some. LinkedIn, don't ban me, but we've got some stuff going on LinkedIn at the moment, obviously reaching out to people and networking and doing some AI messaging and stuff. So we're playing with that. But it's in terms of AI that's more specific to us in our kind of industry, we are looking at it for like clothing generation and sort of digital humans, for example. There's some kind of depending on where we draw the line about what AI and machine learning models. There's a lot of stuff that Epic are doing that we're kind of following and kind of keeping an eye on. That comes with the digital human work, which you can find a bit more out on our social media page.
Yeah, I saw one of your posts about that, right?
It's very cool. That's actually of our. If you see the actual person that's been created there in our most latest posts, that's actually of our digital twin of our cinematic artist. But we'll be doing a bit more work on that maybe into next year. But I'm particularly interested in what NVIDIA is doing at the moment, specifically in our industry, how they're using, again, machine-generated content, so machine learning and AI to develop and create models just by asking. It's like, hey, make me a banana, or make me a World War II bunker, or make me a glass, or make me some, an environment, essentially. That, I think, is going to be quite game-changing. There's a lot of procedural stuff going on as well at the moment. Again, Epic are working on that. NVIDIA being the driving force for the processes and the actual chip and the fabrication. So those two are really kind of working in tandem at the moment. I think those are the big ones that are affecting our industry. So as I said, most of these tools are just making an artist or a developer more proficient. And that's all it's doing. Going back 10 years ago or 5 years ago, say, hey, make me this environment, or make me a concept of this environment. It's like, cool, right, we'll get back to you in a couple of weeks minimum. Now it's a case of like, let's ask, whatever AI system it is, and then go away for half a day, put it together with Kit Bash, and kind of you've got 90% of what you would have had in 2 weeks, essentially, in the space of a few hours. So it's crazy.
And so you don't see that taking over any roles anytime?
I don't think it will ever truly take over. You can't replace. I mean, there's an argument to be had that you see this with the effective banning of AI art, right? So people are saying no to AI art, etc. And it has its place, like everything. You can create some astonishingly amazing stuff with what's the name for the people that can do these prompt generators, essentially, all these prompting jobs that are coming up now for AI. If you can prompt it in a certain way, and those are jobs that are new jobs that are being created for this industry, right? So as well as replacing jobs, taking jobs, or making jobs more proficient, it is creating jobs itself. And you can create some truly wonderful things with prompt generation. But I think there is no true replacement for a human artist or a human interpretation. Those are still the things that I think as a society will find valuable. It's like taking your car to go for a car wash or a hand wash. It's that kind of thing, right? If someone's done it in a hand wash, they've taken time, they've put that care and attention into it, right? Whereas a car wash will do 99% just as good as a job, right? It's that kind of thing, right? It's exactly that kind of thinking behind it. So if we know someone's hand washed our car, we're going to add more value to that because someone's actually gone and done that for you as a service, right? Even though they might have missed a spot, whereas a car wash might not have done. We still would, I would hope, we perceive that as more valuable. And that will come down to code snippets. And again, this is all just going to make us more proficient overall. So
I hope that AI does just speed things up and not. But that's the thing. But everyone thought, when computers were coming out and different robots were entering factories, they thought that it was going to be the complete end of, kind of manual labor and things like that in factories. And it's actually just created more jobs because more people have to then be trained to how to use them and use them efficiently, and then the maintenance on them. And I think we're going to head into that as well.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, we're going to maybe get into a bit of politics here as well. But I think as more of a society, we're probably going to go through a difficult period over the next few decades of changing to these new kind of roles and allowing us to, it's going to take, like we see this with like self-checkout, systems in supermarkets now, right, and co-op and all this kind of stuff, right? We don't need as many people on the shop floor, but that leaves more people to do more creative tasks and more, dare I say it, sort of, more skilled jobs, I'd say, or more sort of university degree worthy jobs, etc. Those kind of things. It allows people to go and work on those kind of jobs. But at the moment, while we're going through we're not quite in recession, but kind of are. We haven't grown by anything, but inflation's up by 5%. So I was like, in my book, that's a -5 then, in terms of growth. But whenever we're in a difficult economy, the arts and the R&D and the progression always suffers. So we don't have a lot in society at the moment that isn't offering more than a traditional means of, hey, go to university or start your own company. So there's a lot of that support has been taken back, and we don't have those, as we have nowhere near as many opportunities. Take it with a grain of salt, because again, at the same time, I do feel like we've never had so many opportunities to be able to do what we've been able to do, but it seems like it takes a lot more work nowadays.
Yeah.
But it seems like in some aspects there aren't as many opportunities to break out into different industries and reskill, etc. Have all that support in place for people that want to go learn a new task maybe later on in life. So yeah.
I also think the barrier to entry for like for entrepreneurship at the moment, like it is a hard time. In some respects, it's quite hard, but competition's getting more and more fierce in literally every industry that you're working with, because people are more clued up, people are more educated, people have got ChatGPT and other AI models at their disposal, and everything is hyper competitive.
Yeah, and I think that's why I say take it with a grain of salt between there being kind of lack of opportunity, but there is also all the opportunity, because anybody can go start. Like if you're a UK, I don't think you even have to be UK national. As long as you're in the European Union, I think you can just register a business in the United Kingdom. So
yeah, you can.
It costs you 12. Like me as Invidar, we've never had any funding. Essentially, we've never had any grant funding. No one's ever put a lump sum of money into the company. I'm still 100% a shareholder of that company, etc. Although looking at exciting opportunities like employee ownership, for example, going back to that compassionate leadership, giving employees ownership, that's a whole different conversation. But we've only ever, everyone has the opportunity to go and do that. But for an SME, so a small medium business or a freelancer, there isn't a lot of support out there, in my opinion, compared to a large business. If my company was 10 times the size it was, we'd still have the same amount of support. There's no, in my opinion, special support for shareholders, directors. A lot of that has been cancelled, whittled down. Essentially, when you look at, I'm sure you might be aware of this, when you look at dividends, etc., that used to be $5,000 going back a few years ago. Now it's I think it's 2, or it's been wiped out completely now, or it might be, I can't remember what it is. None of the bans are moving, and this is all to do with. This is all a much longer term plan. I don't want to get too much into politics of it, but tax has to go up. Essentially, tax has to go up massively. We're trying to follow a model that's echoed much by the Nordics, in my opinion, where we are trying to provide healthcare. We are trying to build. We are dealing with an aging population, and the Nordics do it very well. But the reason they do it very well is because their taxation is nearly 50% on everything.
Yeah.
So
it's beautiful and clean over there. I don't know if anybody, if you haven't been to Copenhagen or Oslo, go there and you'll be extremely surprised. It's very different to Birmingham city centre.
Yeah, but that's because they take in enough from taxes, and people understand that, hey, you're going to take half my salary, but everything is paid for, and it's good to a good service as well. And that's why I say I think we're going through a difficult period at the moment in this country overall, in terms of how being allow people to go back and reskill and be creative, that allows them to use this new technology that's coming out. But that's also incredibly hard, because the country doesn't have the money or the liquidity or the flexibility to be able to do that in a time where actually we need to be charging everyone a lot more money so that we can improve the services, improve public services, etc., to a standard where everyone can benefit from it a lot more easier. Yeah. We see this with trains and the way the companies and the way the country's set up. And it does make me worried. The amount of times, I say the amount of times I've had to call an ambulance. That's a weird thing to say, but I've had to call an ambulance a few times over this last year, both for my family, both one of my employees, and actually for someone random on the streets. And every single time it's been a case of, no, it'll be 6 or 7 hours until an ambulance can get to you. And one of these scenarios was a severe head injury, both back and front, of someone that's come off like an e-scooter. I just think, how? This person is literally, they've got a huge injury to their head. They're showing a lot of signs that actually they're in some serious trouble here. And, you're having to say, either make your way there or, jump in a taxi essentially. And just like, how have we got to this point?
The UK
as a country that is part of, I look at the same when it comes to homelessness. How have we got to a point where we can't support the people in our society to be able to go and do these things? And it affects everything. Yeah. So while it is exciting that everything AI and technology related is growing, we're struggling to provide those opportunities and struggling to provide that economy to the smaller companies overall, in my opinion. So, but I won't get too much into it because there's a lot of points I would make on this. So.
Oh yeah, we could definitely go down a rabbit hole there on there.
Yeah,
the way the UK is following the US in that regards of not taking care of their people that well in there.
Yeah, but
the biggest problem if you raise taxes and inflation's still rising, you're going to get a lot of poor people.
Well, we're seeing it right now. I mean, we haven't seen a crash yet. Will we see a crash in housing? I hope not. I don't think we can. I think the biggest positive takeaway from our economy is that we are so resilient. Our economy has been so resilient to change when everyone has said that actually no, we should be in a recession. Actually no, there should have been a crash. That is probably the one biggest takeaway, is that the UK economy has been so resilient to this change. And we spoke about mortgage earlier. My mortgage is almost 2.5x.
Yeah.
Since coming off a variable rate a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
It's gone from being something that was under £1,000, which would have been much cheaper than rent, to being more expensive than what it would have been to rent for similar property.
Yeah.
And it's a case of like, well, in some respects, that's the way it should have been, because actually these interest rates now are what our parents would have had back in the day. What the Americans would have seen. You would have seen higher rates like that. This isn't unusual. But it is unusual for a generation that's been put into low interest for the last, especially around mortgages, for the last 8 years. And what the government has failed to do is up it every year until we get a point where we are consistent or used to having these higher rates. And again, it just comes back to failing in government. But we've currently suddenly, it's like, oh no, we've got this problem that we need to go and solve. Let's quickly go and fix it, right? And it probably comes back to the original point of being transparent and honest, right? I think there's this whole thing at the moment of the government knows they're going to have to up things over the next few years, but no one wants to say it.
Yeah, they're just like, we're just going to pass it on to the next guys.
Yeah.
Hope they have to mention it.
Yeah. And I think, I think it was even a bit of the King's Speech, where we have to start making bold moves. We have to start being brave. And I think there needs to be a difficult conversation had with the rest of the UK from government. Say, hey guys, actually the next years are really not going to be nice.
Yeah.
But here's the reason why. So
that's going to be, I think we've had it pretty comfortable, our generation. We haven't really had to go through, like, the pandemic was probably the craziest shit we've gone through, and if you compare that to, like World War II, for example, it wasn't that bad, So I think I am pessimistic on a little bit what is to come. There has to be a dip. There has to be a big dip at some point.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day as well, I mean, like I look at myself, right? I come from I come from a relatively working class background. My mum worked multiple jobs. She works as a cleaner, caretaker. My dad was a lorry skip driver, for example. I've had the opportunity to have a roof over my head. When my parents did lose everything in the 2008 crisis, they were able to go into council housing. Now look at me now. I now own my own property. Yeah. I've had government funding to go and learn education, because there's no way my parents would. I'm the only one of my brothers to go to university, youngest of 3. I took out a student loan, still paying back now. Grateful that I've gone and had that education that have allowed me to go into opportunities and learn and have these facilitate and do what I can, and then I've had the opportunity to go and register my business and go and do well and hire employees in an economy that facilitates me to do the opportunity. But it is getting harder and harder to do that. But at the end of the day, we are in, a society and an economy that allows us to do that. So there's part of me that's saying, yeah, we'd love it to be better. We'd all love it to be better. We'd all love tax to be down, all this kind of stuff. But there's no replacement for sort of going out there and doing it, right?
And even in those hard times, there's always going to be 2 sets of people: the people that just give up and think, oh, it's shit, what can I do? Yeah. And there's going to be the other people, the positive people and the innovators who think, actually, there's an opportunity here. What can we think of? What can we do? And that's what is it like? Pessimists get to be right, and optimists get to be rich. And that's such a true thing when we talk about those 2 different camps of like, what should I do?
Yeah. I mean, consistent. Yeah. And then like looking at consistency and progress as well. If you, it's like starting a YouTube channel for anybody that wants to go out there, content drive network, essentially, like take YouTube or doing social media or doing anything like that, where you have to take your first step essentially to do anything. It's never going to be right. Your first step will never be right. No. The point is that it's a step in the right direction, right? And even if you completely fail, you can learn from that failure. So let's say you put up a YouTube video, but you fail to make it public, like, cool, right, it's only gone private. I'll learn from that failure for next time. I'll now post it now, right? So there's little failings that build up everything. And it's, I don't want to come up with an idea and go and get venture capital funding for £2 million and then build an entire team around that one. I haven't done it before. I'd much rather start my own company. If I make 50 quid, great, I've made 50 I've made £50, right? I've had that, but then I've had my tax come in and I haven't equated for that, and that's my failing, and I've learned that. Cool. Much better to do that with 50 quid than 2 million, right? So it is just taking those first steps and being consistent with what we're doing. And just start. Just get out there and do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, don't really think about the steps that they're learning along the way. Like sometimes, if you start a business and it fails, for example, you think, oh shit, I'm a failure. But you don't actually think about, all of the skills you learn along that way. You may have learned how to do email marketing. You may have learned how to do cold calls. You may have learned all of these things you can actually take off into your next venture, which then instead of starting from 0, you're starting from 10. And then the next business that you might try, you're then starting from 30. And eventually you go, actually, I know exactly what to do right now. And people forget that those increment steps are so important into whatever you do next.
Yeah, and it's something. And you look at the crazy statistics as well about businesses that fail within the first 3 or 5 years. Essentially, it's very high.
Yeah,
it's something like 70 or like 80%, or it might even be higher than that. I've got the statistics. I've got a big mood board, and one part of that is the statistics of companies that fail. And I've actually put it in my employees' calendar and said, right, we're going to have a 5-year party, because I already know we're going to get there now, and we're over a year out, right? That's how confident I am by having a picture of my business saying, right, I know we're definitely going to hit this. So that's our success thing now. We've created a business. We have created a business, everyone, that has gone out, done what we said we were going to do, and still be here 5 years later. So we must be doing something right. But that only comes with learning from the failures. There are multiple lessons I'd love to put in a book one day, and these are just lessons I've learned from other people. And the quickest one there is fail faster, right? If something's going in the wrong direction, cool. Qualify it, essentially. Is it going to go in the wrong direction? Can we mitigate it? Can we actually fix it? No, cool, right. Let's have that conversation, because you learn from it. The more you fail, the more you learn. So,
absolutely. I think, we could go down a massive rabbit hole on that one as well. I think one of the two, like the big takeaways that I've probably learned from this conversation is more about compassionate leadership, which is something that has been missed in a lot of business. I think people take the Steve Jobs approach, for example, and think you have to be a complete prick to everybody, and that's the way you get the best out of people. But I think the way you're looking at it in terms of compassion and being honest and just, let's not bullshit each other here, especially when you're in a relatively small team. Because how big's your team currently now?
Yeah, so, we fluctuate a little bit. At our height, I think we're about 8 employees. We're at 6 now. There's a few people that are kind of part-time in the background. And we've got plans to hire a few more, hopefully in the new year. We're hoping next year is going to be our year of growth. Whereas this has been our year of maturity and learning and applying what we learned from our failures that we had in our second year, which was our best year ever. But there was also some big failings in that year from my perspective as a leader.
That's very honest of you.
It is. And it's failing to, while the going was good, we failed to plan, or I failed to plan for certain things. And I thought that tap was always going to stay open. And when it stopped, we had to go, right, what are we actually going to do, and reevaluate. And it took a difficult 6 months to get that work. But that's why this year has been now a year of processes and maturity and planning, etc., which has been lovely. And next year we're going to be like, right, we've got a game plan now, and here's exactly what we're doing. And that's why I know I've put that 5-year plan in, because it's not a case of we're aiming for this. It's a case of I know we're going to get here. We're now planning for what's after in year 6 and 7.
Quick question on that: like when did you start? When did you start planning things? Like, that might sound like a really straightforward question, but like, at what point were you like, okay, was it year 1? Was it year month 6? That you were starting thinking like, okay, shit, we have to think about next year. At what point was that, and how did you read books on that? Was it a mentor?
So, and it's so there's always this element of only looking like a few months ahead, essentially, and it's a scary question, because it's a scary answer that actually that only really took place maybe in the last 4 months. The last four or 6 months, I've been working with someone in the background who's really been, who's built up businesses essentially. So I've effectively brought on a mentor who's really, had access to everything, been through all the books, etc., and been through what we're doing, and basically said, great, but you're missing this, we need to do this, we need to think about this. And actually who can, what is the longer game term plan? So realistically, that's only happened over the last 4 or 6 months in terms of having that plan. that much longer kind of 5 year sort of, what's 5 year plan? Are we looking to build to sell? Are we looking to build to get to a certain point? Are we looking to work with these particular people, etc.? What's the longer term objective? So but that's come through bringing on someone like a senior mentor to kind of learn from and saying like, hey, I'm doing okay, but actually I don't know everything and I do need some support in this. And actually, what do you think? Can I get your opinion on it?
That must be nice to have, because I think it must be quite easy. Like when things are going well, you can become overconfident, complacent. And it does, again, take some humility to go to an older guy who's been there, done it. Because sometimes you can think you know it all. Like we've all been there when things are going right?
Yeah.
It does take a lot of humility to go and ask for help. It's not an easy thing to do when you think you kind of know it all.
Yeah. So, and it does come back to those statistics, right? Businesses, first time founders, they will fail a lot, but you've just got to learn from them. But it does come back down to that compassionate leadership as well. Working with your guys, letting them know what's going on, letting them know why you're asking for a certain thing or something. So we go back to the Steve Jobs example, right? It's like, I want it this particular way. Gives no reason or direction why. And to a point, you kind of want people to, listen to your vision, kind of trust your vision, etc. But if I tell the person that I'm working with why I want that done for a particular reason, because it might not be a straightforward ask, it might be something that you might think is completely backwards.
Yeah.
So if I say, hey, can you prep that so that this is ready for the morning, or and the reason I want to actually is because the client's actually coming in at 8 before you're coming in, so that I've got it ready overnight. It's not something that you can just jump on 5 minutes before in the morning and have done for me. It's because I'm good. I'll give an example of holiday. So 2 of my guys are out on holiday this week. They're the ones that work in my client's office. I've just, guys, can you make sure, I know you're on their holiday schedules, but can you put it in mine as well? Because then, if the client rings me up and asks where you are, I can direct them and say, hey, no, it's in your calendar, it's right here. Just having those conversations, and letting them know the why behind it. I think why do I want to do it in a particular way? Because I want to be set up for this scenario, because the client has asked for this, but I think they're going to ask for this. So can you do it this way? Can we over-engineer it a bit, or actually, again, just going through that process.
Yeah, I definitely think that's actually, I was on a leadership course probably a year ago, and that was one of the lady who was instructing the course. She was saying, instead of telling people what to do all the time, explain why you're doing it. And then people genuinely might not even know why you do it that way. It's like, guys, we need to be making 50 sales calls a day. And if you're just constantly banging that drum, and then in the next meeting, you could just go, okay, guys, this is why we make 50 sales calls a day, because on average, we're seeing that the close rate is 5%. That means if we make 50 calls, we'll close this many people. And then they actually realize, instead of it just being like, do what I say, you actually give them some scope.
Yeah. And it also gives them the opportunity to also question as well.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do, what we're going to do. Has anybody got any thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Has anybody got to think of a better way that we can do it? Has anybody got any, does anybody see any issues with it if we do it this particular way?
Yeah.
And that has come up. That has come up before, saying like, actually, we could do it this way. It'll take a few hours longer, but it will provide us all these different opportunities and set up for this, right? That's why a number of times as well, when we work with our clients, we say, okay, you've given me a project scope. What's phase 2 and 3 look like? And they might say, well, there's no phase 2 and 3. It's like, there might not be for us, but there is for you, because you're going to have to take this product, etc. So can we build something in now which is ready for your next phase 2 and 3, essentially? So again, it's having that open dialogue, having that area, having that environment to facilitate those open conversations in all aspects of work. There's no, it's almost comes down to the classic trope, right? There's no dumb questions, right? There are no dumb questions, because if you have a dumb question, that just shows that I haven't explained fully, or you might not understand a concept that I'm discussing to a senior or to someone else or to a client that you might not understand. So cool, ask the questions, because then you might be able to say you can grow as well. So it benefits everybody, all the way from employee, business owner, director, client, senior, whatever it might be, all the way through to the client. It's everybody.
Yeah, I could not agree more on that point at all. So let's talk about a little bit what you've got going on in the future. So you're planning out the next couple of years. Obviously, you're going to have your 5-year party.
Yeah.
What have you got planned in the future then? So what are kind of the goals that you've been setting? Because everyone's in December thinking, new year, new me, new year, new business, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So What have you got on the
So,
horizon?
so there is a little bit of that. So the hope is, so from my standpoint, from me, because it does trickle down essentially in terms of the growth. Um, for me, I'm seeing it as a year of growth. Essentially, we've spent a lot of this year setting up processes ready for the next year. As part of that, there's a couple companies that I'm going to be hopefully joining and working with from a kind of head or a CTO production facility, essentially. So we're going to be joining a few other companies for myself, which means I can have more experience working on some different business models, etc. We're also looking to start. I'm also looking to start another business, looking at a SaaS-based business rather than a services-based business. So Invidar is very much delivering services, where we want to actually develop a product now. Potentially look at some venture capital funding or an angel investment maybe into that once we've done some initial work on that. Through the developers with Invidar. So it's all kind of feeding back into each other. I do want to look at some sort of platforms making as well. So making some platforms for some of the tools that we already use. For example, some of the 3D work we're doing, how we store and how we evaluate 3D models, etc. is something that we keep being asked for our clients and to do certain things different ways. So right, there's an option for a market there. So that's what we want our new SaaS-based business to deal with. So for me, it's going to be a year of jumping away from the development side and the actual creation side to entrepreneurship, business leader, spreading across a few different businesses, giving us 4x the amount of opportunities that we potentially have in this market, and being able to do a lot more products wise and for consumers, and not just working on B2B models. So and with that, there'll be a generation of a lot more work, essentially. The SaaS-based model, I'm hoping, will balance out the feast and famine cycle for a services-based company, especially in the time that we're in. It's always good to have.
Yeah.
So that's like investing in your network or investing in your content that you're making, for example. And that will meld nicely and then kind of fill in some of the market sector gaps that we've been utilizing as services. So saying, hey, can we offer that as a service ourselves? Cool. Right now we have the funding from our SaaS-based business to do that. Let's go and do that. So we're just kind of filling our gaps. So we're starting to facilitate maybe more services, become more of a full service agency for 3D in general, as well as just working on some amazing other companies in the new year, which I can't announce at the moment. So that's very much what it looks like for me personally. For Invidar, it's looking like a year of growth. We have got some projects on the table at the moment that are actually longer than the company's actually been running, which is an astonishing kind of statement to make, to say, hey, we're looking at some sort of some 8-year project. Like the max term of the project is 8 years. Yes, very big project, but it's probably only going to last maybe three or four, maybe. Hopefully longer than that. Hopefully it does go the whole term. We never know. But the fact that we're having those types of opportunities come along our desks now, the fact that we're prepared for that opportunity as well. We've been preparing for about half a year for that opportunity, knowing that it was coming. So we're prepped for it. Again, working with those other companies, building more SaaS-based platforms through Invidar. So Invidar is having more partnerships in software as a service products, which is SaaS. It is more of what Invidar is going to be doing next year. So, and actually just getting back for the team to come back together, because we are currently split. So we're looking forward to that as well. So that's more what we're going to be doing next year. There's going to be the length and the value of our projects are going to be increased vastly. And with that, hopefully that will balance out cash flow, because that's always a problem for businesses. Cash flow is always a problem. Cash is king. But we're hoping it's going to be growth. So we'll fill up the office again with great people, maybe even past maybe the 10 employee mark, I would imagine, at which point we need to start thinking about, how do I hire a manager? Do I need a manager? How am I going to hire for that? So there are these new opportunities, there are these new problems that we're going to have to solve essentially. How do I hire someone like myself that has got that compassionate leadership, right? Or what training do I have to give them, or from that perspective? Or do I actually need someone part-time HR now? So those challenges to look forward to into next year.
Very exciting. Well, mate, first of all, thank you very much for your time. So we're coming up with, we've gone past the hour, but it's one of those things. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. And where can people find more about the company then, and you as well?
Yeah, so honestly, the best place to find us, I mean, for people that may have Googled already, we've got our website up. You can find us at invidar.com essentially. But the best place, honestly, is to find me on LinkedIn. If you find Invidar on LinkedIn, you can find me essentially. Come and have a chat with me about anything, essentially reach out on there. That's the best way to find me because that's where all our content goes. Because like any funny creative business, we never get time to work on our own products, which unfortunately is the website. But there is an update coming to it soon. But yeah, find us on LinkedIn is the best place to find us. So
Cool. All right, mate. Well, thank you very much for your time. And thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much, David. Cheers.